do your thing, you meet the one, and settle down. But to say that period where you do your thing isn't necessary, I completely disagree with that. I think you're going to end up wrecking in the modern world with Instagram, with this, with everyone after his chick, when he's Joe Schmo, and I'm messaging her, it's over. And I'm saying the best advice you can give the guy is when he gets his heart broken and he's shooting his story, you need to become a man with a gun. Go get the gym, so you'll get more money, and you'll get more women, and you're just going to become that guy.
So crossing over, predicting the outcome of the big game just got a whole lot more interesting. Because with Crypto.com sports,
the modern world was built by I never know work, and I never lay in. I'm never lazy. And I don't understand how people don't work all the time. The answer to everything has always been raw action. I'm talking to my brother. I'm saying, if you know good men, all they want to do is most of the time is work. What men who are good want to do most of the time is work. Some version of work. Training, making money, organizing their life, getting their car clean, whatever. It's a degree of work. Women love fun. Women want fun all the time. And fun is where all the haramities appear. It's where all the negative organs appear. You're only going to get in a fight if you're going out trying to have fun. You're all like drugs and rape charges and physical violence and assassinations. But this all is linked to fun.
yeah.
If you want fun, you're dragging all this. Yeah, if you want to just work, you can avoid a lot of bad things. Am I hard on myself? Yes. Does that benefit me? I believe so. Hard on myself with life. Things you could be nice if life be easier if you thought life was easy, because isn't life what you see, not what it is? What's the point in having an easy life? Why would I want an easy life? If someone were to say to me, do you want an easy life? I'd say that sounds cool. I mean, did Genghis Khan want an easy life? Did Alexander the Great want an easy life? Did any of the men you can remember from history, any of the ones that actually matter, ever want an easy life? If I meet a man and he says, I want an easy life, I just want a stress-free life, I look at him and think, you're born to lose. You're born to lose, sir. You have your stress-free life, and you're going to serve me my latte, and you're not made to, life is war, and it's going to be stressful. I mean, life isn't always, of course it is. And life is war, every single aspect of life is war. All losing your temper in traffic on your way to a podcast is war. Trying to get a girl that the other guy wants is war. Trying to buy a Ferrari that everybody else can't afford is war. Training is war. Fighting is war. Life is war. I see war everywhere. When I see a big, beautiful oak tree, I don't see a big, beautiful oak tree. I see a tree that destroyed all the saplings around it and crushed them mercilessly. It's war. Life is war. So that's how I view it. There's so much work for you to do as a man. I don't know how people do it. I barely sleep, and I never know work, and I never lay in. I'm never lazy. And I don't understand how people don't work all of the time. And when I say that, I say, well, work on what? I don't know what to work on. Bro, you need 10 passports, you need 25 bank accounts, you need show companies, you need a trust fund, you need to make some money, you need to move that money away, you need multiple places to live, you need a place for your children to live, they need a trust fund, but you have stuff to do. I mean, people are just sitting around doing nothing. It's mind-boggling to me. Anyone who knows me will tell you I'm awake. I'm working. I'm awake. I'm at home. The second I wake up, I'm on my laptop. The second I wake up. First thing I do, I wake up and check my phone. First thing I do. I even do anything fun. I kill all the fun stuff. Filming, videos, doing having fun, not having fun, ever. So, I make it fun. So, I only enjoy it. I like it. So, I'm proud of myself. I rest when I sleep. Sure. We're not ultimately tired. 2 extra hours in bed every once in a while. Yeah. Okay, I do that. But I never just have a day. Just like that. Never said I need a day. I just need a day off. You ever heard me say I need a day off? Ever. I work all the time. I think I've always understood that I work. And you cannot be truly outwork. Outwork along with things by yourself. Outwork along with every emotions. Outwork along with all things mind. When people sit and say, oh, I'm unhappy or I'm sad, you don't have time. How do you find the time today to sit around thinking about being sad? Your shit to do. Like, I don't have time to sit around and talk
busy. So how do you have enough time for that? I've had people sit and give me long trips on how they feel. I'm like, where did you come up with this shit? How long have you been sitting around just thinking about nothing? I don't have time for it. Even out I'll plane to fly with gravity. That's all it does. If the plane stops moving forward, what happens? It falls down. So if you just think of yourself and the mentality of your followers and everyone else around you, you can outwork everybody. Well, I've always understood outworking people, and I also think that it's very easy to work hard and win when you're hard. It's hard to get there. It starts off hard. It's harder to find a way to make money, work all the time, deal with all the bullshit, and be at the bottom of whatever industry you're in, and not have any reputation, whatever. But if I were to think of all of you right now, for every minute you go to the spa, get ranked. I guarantee you'll still be out there right now. Everyone will be like, oh, I know. So it's like, once you get to the point, like in my position, where I know if I put the time in, I'm going to win, then how can I stop now?
What is a man? Truthfully, a man, I believe, is being able to do the things that are hard or do things you don't want to do because you're supposed to do. I think that's what a man's always been. A man is supposed to be strong. He needs to be strong, so he has to become strong. That's his job. A man is supposed to be brave. It's not that you can't feel fear. It's that you have to be brave. The modern world was built by men trying to prove their capabilities and prove they can do things. That's what the whole world is. That's all it's ever been. But truthfully, the real men were, I'm going to go over and try and cross Antarctica by foot because no one's coming. Well, that doesn't make sense. Why are we in skyscrapers? Why have we gone to Mars? Why do men buy expensive things? Why do we do hard things? That's what masculinity has always been. That's how the world was built. But now they're going to come along and say, no, that's not masculinity. Masculinity is not trying to be the best version of yourself and proving to the world that you can do all things. The reason I lost 65 cars and I put them in a row is funny. Haha, look, I can. Speak off. Look what I can do. Ah, that's it. It doesn't have to go any deeper than that. I don't have to drive them. I can't even name those. But never doubt convince you that true masculinity is being so sure within yourself that you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Well, if you don't have to prove anything to anybody, then you don't have any capability. So you're actually a useless idiot. And you're going to sit there and be so arrogant that you believe you have no duty to the society or to your woman or to your ancestors and you can just be secure in yourself. I don't need to prove myself to nobody and I'm just secure in myself. Well, you're one of the sheep being led to the slaughter because you have absolutely no capabilities whatsoever. There's a huge percentage of the populace.
Let me let you in on a little secret. All of these American investors have it back. If you have at least $50,000 saved for retirement in 2024, did you know that you can legally become your own bank? Listen, in order to make just a 10% return per month, they'll tell you that you have to become a forex trader, start playing around with options, or buy a business, or invest in real estate, buy gold, buy meme coins, all of this unnecessary stuff. Well, all of that can and does. But if you're like me, like I was 5 years ago when I started off, I was a broke CFA right out of college, making $150K a year, working as an analyst at an investment bank. And why not love seeing behind the curtain and seeing what some billionaires were doing to generate great returns? Ultimately, what I really wanted wasn't just to spend the next 25 years making rich people.
There's a huge percentage of the populace which they're beyond saving because of the worst thing you can possibly do. Being a quitter is the worst thing you can possibly do. God himself can't make a quitter important. Because the only reason the place you're trying to get to has value is because it's difficult to reach. If everybody could reach it, there'd be no value. Value is like scarcity. The whole point goal is valuable is because it's not everywhere. Because everywhere wouldn't have any value. The reason the place you're trying to reach is valuable is because people can't get there. So if you're the kind of person who quits, you're never going to get there. Quitters are the worst. You could get a quitter a map, a treasure map, and a whole air balloon. Say it's going to take you right to the treasure. It's going to be a 7-day journey. Here's a sandwich, and halfway through the like, oh, it's cold.
Yeah, you just said all 7 days.
Yeah, and they'll quit.
Yeah.
Quitters will never make it. That's a huge subset of the populace who is basically simply quitters. I've never in my life seen anyone determined to get something not get it. I've never seen somebody who is determined in their heart hard to get something done. The universe and God is so giving and providing. People think it's difficult out here. I disagree. I've never seen someone wake up and say, nah, this is all I care about. This is all I want. Not kidding. Everyone who thought that way in fighting was world champion. Everyone who thought that way about money was rich. I've never seen anyone fail. Bro, I've seen people with no credit score and no job determined to get an RA manage to get on fighting. I've seen it. If it's all you want, you're gonna get it.
You're gonna find a way to
You're
get
gonna
it.
find a way. People go, oh, I want this. If you want it.
Literally, I spoke to a man who on the podcast recently, and he was saying if someone had a gun to your children's head and said to you, the only way I'm going to move this gun is by you making $1 million, you are going to make $1 million.
100%. You're gonna be motivated for the first time in your life. People often say, if you try your best, it's okay to fail. But what they don't understand, the true secret to the universe is that if you try your best, you never fail. That's what people don't understand. And most people aren't trying. They aren't trying. They don't know what trying is. In fact, that's probably one of the things I hear the most. I used to hear the most, because I don't talk to people anymore, because I don't like it. Oh, I'm trying. No, you're not. You don't know what trying is. No, you are not trying. I know you're not trying. I know, because as we sat here, before we went to speak, you weren't on your phone working. You weren't trying. You were standing around talking shit to some idiot. You're not trying. People are genuinely not out here giving their absolute best, because if you were, you'd have everything you've ever desired. You'd have anything you've ever wanted and asked for. Instead, what people do is they cope and convince themselves to try. Oh, I tried, but I need a work-life balance. It's hard. I was trying. All garbage. All cope. And like I said earlier, life is war. If you're a man and you don't view the world as war, I can't imagine how you view the world. My entire worldview is war. I guess the only disadvantage of being so hard on myself is that I'm extremely hard on others. And some people find me difficult to deal with for that reason. I'm like, oh, I'm struggling with this. But it has to be done at this time. Oh yeah, but. I don't care. You will lose your job if it's not done at this time. That's the bottom line. And I guess I can be ruthless, but why would I have sympathy for somebody else I don't have for myself? If I'm going to be so strict on myself, why would I allow sympathy for others? If I know I'm going to do it, I'm going to hold them to my standard. So I guess to a degree I can come across as unempathetic to others, I guess. But at least like, you know? And I also like to believe that because I lead from the front, I'm not an armchair general. I'm suffering myself. So if I'm going to suffer and I'm going to perform and I'm going to get everything I need to do done, then I expect absolutely the same from everybody around me or they're not going to be around me. So am I hard on myself? Yes. Will that change? No. Life is war. Life is hard. You're supposed to be hard on yourself. Perhaps most men would benefit from being a lot harder on themselves. I think I see a lot of men coming up with a lot of excuses for permanent failure. I see it all the time. Why? I can't pay my bills. Okay, cool. Why? Oh, you know, because it's hard. And it's all just people. I don't want to hear it's garbage. It's hard. It's hard for everybody, and you're gonna have to just be harder on yourself and pull it off, or fail. And don't talk to me. Bro, it's I don't know what to say. I don't want to come across psychopath, but it's like life is difficult. And also, I mean, we all know that there's always someone who has it worse. That's true. I mean, we're in Romania. You can drive 5 hours to the border and find men in the ditch getting blown apart by drones. You're crying over what? A girl left you? Some chick? You're not going to do your work? I always knew the answer to everything was raw action. Yeah. The answer to everything has always been raw action. My dad had a tweet about this. He said, raw action solves all. And he used to say this. I'll give you an example. You're a farmer and you need rain for your crop, and there's no rain. You could sit there and say there's no rain, we're all going to stop. Or you could stand up and do a rain dance. Now, will your rain dance work? Perhaps not. Perhaps the rain...
Also, please subscribe to our channel, turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. Okay, let's get into today's stories. On the evening of December 29, 1986, the California Highway Patrol officer named Greg Pyre drove his cruiser down Interstate 15 in San Francisco. With him was NBC reporter and accident, cameraman, and passengers. They were filming a segment about highway traffic safety that was set to air on evening news that night. Officer Pyre was following his typical patrol route, but after a few minutes, they passed by a sign that said Mercy Road, an exit. At that point, Officer Pyre turned to the news team, pointed at Mercy Road, and said, "That's where we found the body." So a little more than 36 hours later, at around 4 a.m. this morning, a 20-year-old college student, Kara Knott, had been found strangled to death in a creek right near Mercy Road exit. Kara had been home at her boyfriend's house when, for whatever reason, car troubles, maybe she was trying to help someone, she wound up in a cul-de-sac, and then while she was there, she clearly encountered something dangerous. And so this was actually why the California Highway Patrol and NBC News were collaborating on this news segment, because the killer was still not caught. And so the idea behind this segment was basically to tell drivers along this highway, like, how to stay safe when they were out there, especially if for whatever reason they had stopped somewhere along the highway, what to do in that situation. And so as Officer Pyre passed by the Mercy Road exit and continued down Interstate 15, he turned to the news crew, and as they filmed, he began talking about the basics of highway traffic safety. Specifically, he said, look, one of the most hazardous things that can happen to you beyond an accident on the highway is if you have some sort of car trouble that forces you to stop on the highway. Because once you stop, there's an inclination for a lot of people to want to leave their vehicle. That's a very dangerous thing to do.
Happen. Being a female, you can be raped, robbed if you're a male, all the way to the
Officer Pyre also warned people not to get dangerous because there's a running theory at this point that perhaps Kara had gotten into the killer's car. As this particular segment was filmed, the one we just watched, Officer Pyre was looking ahead and he noticed there was a car pulled over on the shoulder of the highway with its hazards on. So he turned to the news crew and basically said, look, here's a chance for us to actually show the people in real time what to do in case your car breaks down on the highway. So he pulled his cruiser over right behind the stalled car, got out, and then gestured for the news crew to come with him. Officer Pyre walked over to the passenger side door of his car, and through the open window, he asked the driver to get out and talk to him. The driver did. The camera rolled. Officer Pyre asked him to explain, what's going on here, what happened to your car. The driver said he had run out of gas and then gotten stranded on the side of the road. Then he had left his car and walked to a gas station to get a gas can. All the way back, he put the gas into his car, but his car still wouldn't start. Now, at this point, Officer Pyre has realized that this driver is doing basically exactly what he shouldn't be doing, according to the safety tips Officer Pyre had given. And so on camera, he basically says to this guy, do you understand how dangerous it is to have left your car like that and walked along on this highway? Do you understand what a hazard that is? And the driver just kind of looked at him and shrugged. Yeah, I guess so. After that, Officer Pyre called the tow truck. His car was towed and the man was on his way. Officer Pyre got back to the news crew and they carried on. After that, Officer Pyre and the news crew wrapped up filming, and then after he dropped them back off again, they told them what time to expect the segment to air on NBC that night. Sure enough, that evening, Officer Pyre was in front of the TV as the broadcast started. And when Officer Pyre's actual segment aired on TV, to him and to the California Highway Patrol, it went great. It was a minute and a half long. It sort of hit all the high points. It showed Officer Pyre, talking about how to be safe on the highway and talking to the stranded motorist. Kind of did exactly what they expected it to do. When it was over, Officer Pyre clicked off the TV and didn't think much about it. It was not a big deal. It was just a basic safety video. And for the vast majority of other people who watched this clip live on TV, it really didn't stand out to them. Again, it was just kind of a routine police safety video. There were a few people, when they watched this clip, that noticed something very specific. And within an hour of this clip airing on TV, those few people were calling the police in droves to tell them, we know what happened to Karen Hunt. And the police would follow up on these tips. And sure enough, just over arrest Caranaught's killer. It would turn out all the clues police needed to solve the Caranaugh murder case were right there in that 1.5-minute video. Because what happened to Kara had almost happened to over 24 other women in San Diego. And those young women were the ones who saw the news segment when it happened live, and they noticed this particular detail that clearly telegraphed who Kara's killer was. They were the ones who called police. On the night of Kara's murder, December 27, 1986, she pulled off Interstate 15 on the Mercy Road exit. She came to a stop at a cul-de-sac. Now, we don't know exactly why she came to a stop in there. Either way, she was there, and that's where she encountered the killer. Now, the other 24 women who encountered the same person, the killer, they were terrorized and tortured and held hostage for a couple of hours, but eventually were let go. But Kara wasn't. During her encounter, at some point, the killer clubbed her over the head and then strangled her to death. Now, the killer, at first, had gotten away with this until they were featured on that 1.5-minute long video. And some of those women who had survived their attack were watching the segment, and suddenly their attacker is on TV. Now, they had previously reported their attack to police, but to this point, nothing had been done. And now they're staring at, for sure, the person who attacked them on TV. And critically, as part of this segment, they're hearing about how this other young woman had been attacked and killed on this highway. And they're thinking, oh, this person did that to me. I barely got away. I bet they killed this girl. And on top of that, as they're watching the news, staring at their attacker, they can see there's a fresh cut over their eye. And so put that all together, and they thought, boom, that's the person who killed Kara Knotts. And sure enough, the police would follow up on these tips, and they would confirm that the man in the video with the cut over his eyebrow was Kara's killer. Kara's killer was none other than Officer Craig Pyre. Officer Pyre was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Since being incarcerated, he has gone up for parole 2 separate times and been rejected both times. However, he is up for parole again in 2027. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. This Thursday, a lot of questionnaire online. Switch your therapist, and he does a blank space for you to write /Mr. Ballin to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Around 1 p.m. on November 28, 1979, a 52-year-old tour guide named Peter Muldrow stood at the front of the cabin of Air New Zealand flight TE901. Out the window next to him, he looked out and he saw this vast white landscape reflecting the afternoon sun. And so he grabbed the microphone and announced to the 237 passengers that they were now going to Antarctica. The passengers got really excited and immediately pulled out their cameras and began snapping photos left and right. And as you can see from some of the photos that they took, a lot of the passengers actually got up out of their seats and moved around to get the best angle of the ground down below. Now, on a normal commercial flight, that behavior would not be okay. You can't just, wander all around the cabin. You need to basically stay seated. But this was not a normal commercial flight. This was a sightseeing flight. Air New Zealand regularly took off from New Zealand and would fly people up over Antarctica, and their tour guide would point out a few landmarks down below, and then that flight would land back in New Zealand. That was the whole thing. It was just a chance to go out, see Antarctica, and take photos. Peter had been a tour guide for this flight many times before, and so he knew what to expect. He not only knew kind of how passengers react, but he also knew exactly when to look out which side of the plane to get the best view. So after a couple of minutes, he called out to the passengers, hey, if you look out the left side of the plane, you'll get a great view of the coast of Antarctica. So all the passengers, they immediately get up, shift over to the left side of the plane, and they press their cameras up against the glass to take photos. And then a couple of minutes later, Peter called out to the group again and said, okay, now look out the right side where you'll see Mount Erebus, this huge, stunning mountain. Now, Peter was accustomed to people gasping when they saw this mountain. This was so beautiful, so enormous. And as people piled up against the right side and began taking photos, as we heard, people were gasping. Then at the same time, the plane suddenly jolted hard. And one of those passengers on the right side took this photo. As you can see, there are black marks on the window. And These black marks are believed to be either engine oil or soot from Mount Erebus. Because Mount Erebus was not just some mountain. Mount Erebus was an active volcano, and the flight path of TE-901 was supposed to have the fluid safely around Mount Erebus to get a nice full view of the volcano. But mistakes were made, and before the pilots could correct them, the plane flew directly into the volcano. And so this photo you're looking at almost certainly was taken literally at the moment of impact. A crash that resulted in 237 lives lost. The crash of flight TE-901 was the worst aviation disaster in New Zealand history, and as a result, Air New Zealand no longer offers those sightseeing flights. At 5:30 a.m. on July 16, 1945, a 13-year-old girl named Barbara Kent was sleeping inside of a cabin in Ruidoso, New Mexico, where she was staying for a sleepover summer dance camp. And as she slept, suddenly there was this loud booming sound that literally shook her awake and actually caused her to fall out of her bed onto the floor. Barbara sat up, feeling totally confused, and she looked around the cabin and she saw the 9 other girls that were also here for the sleepover camp. They too were wide awake. Some of them also had fallen on the floor. And so the girls were all freaking out, looking at each other like, what's going on here? What was that? And as this kind of pandemonium is ensuing, their lead dance instructor came running into the cabin and told the girls that she thought one of the cabin's heaters had exploded and that potentially there could be a fire somewhere on the camp. And so all the girls, they're already totally panicked. Now they're getting really scared. And the instructor just said, all right, girls, go outside, stand by the river. I'm going to go find wherever this explosion happened and make sure everything is okay. So the girls, they were led outside, totally a mess. And they went and stood by this river near the cabin and waited for their instructor to go look around. And so Barbara and the 9 other girls, they're totally terrified, and they're standing by this riverbank, and they're kind of looking around the property, seeing if they can see smoke, fire. And as they're standing there waiting for their instructor to come back, Barbara felt something at the tip of her nose. It was cold and soft. And she looked up, and she realized it was snowing. But it's July in New Mexico. It should not be snowing. But sure enough, snow was coming down from the sky. And as the snow came down on Barbara, she looked at the other girls, and they too were looking up, putting their hands up and letting the snow hit their face. They couldn't believe it. I mean, this was like a totally rare weather event. And so a minute later, their dance instructor came back and told the girls that, she looked all over the camp, and there did not appear to be a fire or an explosion of any kind, and everything seemed fine, and they didn't know what that loud sound was, but, by all accounts, it seemed safe here. And so the girls were very relieved to hear this, but already their attention had completely shifted to the snow. I mean, again, it's July in New Mexico. There shouldn't be snow. And so the girls, they turned to their instructor, and they're like, okay, well, now that it's safe, would it be okay if we put on our bathing suits and just went swimming in the river while it's snowed on us? I mean, this is incredible. And the instructor, to this point, had really been focused on finding the fire and the hazard or whatever. Now that she knew things were safe, she kind of took in the scene and also suddenly appreciated how unbelievable it was. There was snow coming down. And so the girls said, yeah, get your bathing suits, go swimming, enjoy this. This is totally like a once-in-a-lifetime moment here. And so very excitedly, Barbara and the other girls ran back to the cabin, they changed into their swimwear, and then a moment later, they were out frolicking in the river as the snow fell on top. And for hours, they just played in the river and enjoyed the snow. And the snow was kind of building up on the riverbanks, and so some of the girls went over and scooped it up and rubbed it on their faces and made snowballs, and they just had a great time. And at one point, the dance instructor came by and actually took a picture of Barbara, who was right in the middle of the river, enjoying this bizarre scene. But eventually, despite how fun the snow was, the novelty of it all sort of wore off, and the girls got tired of swimming, so they changed into their regular clothes and went about their day. And over the course of the next few days, summer camp went as normal. The girls had a great time, and when summer camp ended, all the girls went home. Now, the girls never got an explanation for why it had snowed. They all just assumed it was some super rare weather event that they had been lucky enough to experience. Until 17 years later, when Barbara was 30 years old at this point, and she learned that all the other girls she had gone to the dance camp with had died. One by one, each of those girls were diagnosed with aggressive forms of cancer that killed them. Barbara was the only one who was spared. And she wouldn't get any clarification as to why that had happened until decades later in 2006 when Barbara was in her 70s. But the government finally came out and admitted the truth. It turned out Barbara's dance instructor was correct in thinking there had been an explosion on July 16, 1945. But of course it was not any of the cabin's heaters or anything local to the cabin of the camp. Instead, the explosion occurred 40 miles away at a U.S. government testing site in the middle of the New Mexico desert. And the explosion that literally caused the girls to be dumped out of their beds was from the world's first ever atomic bomb being dropped. It was the Manhattan Project's Trinity test, a test that no civilians in the area had been warned about. And so after this bomb detonated, there was this nuclear fallout that rained from the sky on 500,000 people that lived within a 150-mile radius of the detonation site. Within those 500,000 people were those 10 innocent teenage girls at their dance camp. The snow that the girls played in was actually radioactive material from this nuclear fallout raining down from the sky that over the course of 17 years would give 9 of the girls various forms of cancer that would kill them. Here is the picture the dance instructor took of Barbara posing in the middle of the river as the snow is falling all around her. As you can see, Barbara is smiling and looking up at the snow, not realizing it's literally going to kill almost everyone in that picture. As for Barbara, she did not die young. However, she would suffer from multiple cancers and illnesses, all associated with radiation exposure. In case you didn't know, we just celebrated Valentine's Day, our annual celebration of Strange, Dark, and Mysterious, with our first live stream of the year. And we announced on this live show our new exclusive merch drop. But we don't want you to miss out. As part of this drop, we have the crew neck, okay, right here. Invest your time in. Well, here are 2 great options right here. If you want more. Today we have a really cool video for you guys. It'll be a collection of 4 stories that are all fan favorites, and they all share a theme: camping horror stories. These stories have all been totally re-edited, so even if you've seen them before, it's going to feel new and improved. That's the whole point of doing this. We wanted this to feel like a brand new viewing experience. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the Strange, Dark, and Mysterious delivered story format, you come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer to refill the like button's Keurig machine. But instead of using water, go ahead and take all the water from inside of those baggies that contain fresh mozzarella cheese and just dump that gross gray water in there. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's stories. In April of 2020, a 17-year-old named Sam was an avid outdoorsman and decided to go on a one-night hike in the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. The mountain's name has a bunch of supposed origins, but the one that's generally accepted is people are afraid of the Superstition Mountains because of all the mysterious deaths that have occurred there. And so because people would avoid these mountains in fear of mysterious death, it became these superstitious mountains. But Sam was not superstitious and regularly came out here to go hiking, in particular on his 8-mile loop that went through the canyon. And so this one night overnight he planned on doing was going to be on that 8-mile loop where he did 4 miles in, camp out, and then 4 miles back. And he planned to do it with a friend, but his friend at the last minute canceled, and so Sam teetered on not even doing it, but ultimately decided, okay, I'll do it by myself. On the day he was supposed to go do the hike, he had planned on getting there early in the day to have maximum lighting, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, traffic, and bad road conditions, he didn't get to the trailhead until 5:45 p.m. that night. Sam knew it was a bad idea to start this hike so late because he was going to run out of daylight. He probably was not going to make it 4 miles before he camping out. But he figured with his good health and fitness, he could probably quickly make it. So he decided he was kind of risk it, just try to go as fast as he could and use the daylight he had to reach a suitable campsite. But he wasn't able to move as fast as he thought he could, and And soon the sun was down and it's totally dark and he's got his flashlight, but that only is able to shine like 10 feet in front of him. And then at one point he nearly falls off of this rock, and he knows had he fallen, he would have gotten really badly hurt. And he's 15 miles away from the nearest help, and he's in a bad cell phone service area, and the roads getting out here are treacherous. No one knows exactly where he is, and it dawns on him that you've made a pretty bad choice, and you should stop right now and make camp here and not try to risk it any further. And so as it happened, where he was, there was this forest right nearby. You could see there was a clearing about 30 feet off the path when he shined his light. And so he walked into that clearing, and he found it was a great spot to make camp. And in fact, on the edge of this clearing was the remnants of a fire pit. It was very old, but it at least showed someone had camped out right here, and they seemed to have made it just fine. So suddenly he was feeling pretty smart, and he felt pretty good about where he was staying. Now Sam intentionally did not bring the tent. He liked to sleep on his sleeping pad with a sleeping bag over that, and then he would string up a tarp over the top of it in case of rain. And since this clearing was surrounded by pine trees, he was able to string up his tarp over the top, and it was perfect. And pretty soon he had a fire going, and then he cracked open a can of beans and began eating his dinner. And as he was eating, he started to get a sense that something was off, something was not right. He began scanning the tree line as if he was going to find something out of the ordinary, but his visibility was incredibly limited because he was sitting right up against a fire. And if you've ever sat next to a fire in a dark forest, your visibility is like 5 feet in a circle around the fire. You really cannot see beyond that. And his vision was also limited by all the pine trees that encircled his clearing. So he really could only see what was immediately around him, nothing else. And he starts thinking, that's gotta be it. Maybe I'm just nervous because I have to. But as he's rationalizing this kind of bad gut feeling, a rock the size of a marble comes soaring into the campsite and lands in his feet. And he looks down at the rock, and immediately he connects that to that sense of dread he had. And he's looking around a little more aggressively now. Again, his vision is very, very limited. And so for the next 15 minutes, Sam is really aggressively scanning the tree line and listening really intently, and he doesn't hear anything, doesn't see any more rocks get thrown. And so he begins to rationalize and convince himself that there's nothing wrong here. That feeling I have, oh, don't worry about that. He starts telling himself, I must have kicked a rock. That's what it is. Or maybe a rock fell off a tree. But either way, it's something totally explainable and you had nothing to worry about. And after a little while, he convinced himself and he got into a sleeping bag under his tarp and he went to sleep. A couple of hours later, Sam wakes up and he has that same sense of dread. And now it's back with a vengeance. And he can't hear anything, he can't see anything, but it's definitely feeling like something is wrong. And at that moment, as he's listening really intently and looking really carefully, he hears the sound of rustling leaves. It sounds like someone walking through leaves about 30 or 40 meters away from his campsite. And initially, he can't tell if this person or animal is walking towards his campsite or away, but over the next 30 seconds or so, the sounds start to fade, and he convinces himself that, okay, they've left and everything's fine. But just in case, he wanted to grab his flashlight and shine it in that direction, and so he reaches next to him where he had left it when he had gone to bed a couple hours earlier, and he can't find his flashlight. He's looking around for it, and he can't find it. He's like, man, that's weird. I had it right here, right next to my body. It's not here anymore. And that's when the alarm bells start going off in his head, because the only way this flashlight moves is if he moved it. If it's not here, how did it move? So he jumps out of his sleeping bag, he ducks out from under the tarp. He's looking around on the ground in the immediate vicinity of where he was sleeping to find his flashlight. And as he's looking, out of the corner of his eye, he sees some light. He turns his head, and in the same direction that he had heard those footsteps, those rustling leaves, when he was still laying down, he sees his flashlight laying on the ground about 10 meters away. Which means someone or something had been less than a foot away from him to get this flashlight right next to him while he was fast no shit and totally helpless, and had moved it all the way over there. Immediately, Sam thinks to himself, that's a trap. They are trying to lure me away from my campsite. Suddenly, he felt so scared he wanted to vomit. But he knew, in order to survive this situation, he didn't keep his wits about him. So he puts his boots on and he grabs his knife. He knows he's not leaving his campsite. In fact, he's going to build the biggest fire he can. He's going to stoke that fire as big as he can get it. And he's not going to go anywhere near that flashlight. For the several hours, Sam stood in the middle of his campsite holding his knife, preparing to side finally moved, turned around, and ran away. Not come back. So when the sun finally did come up, Sam didn't just charge out of there. He's still thinking there could be a trap. He waited until it was totally full sunlight, and packed up everything he had, practically sprinted back to the parking lot, back into his car, and he drove nonstop for 20 miles to the gas station where he could park and collect himself. When he got there, he got out of his car, he went in and he drank. Moving out, he noticed someone had written something on the dust back in his car. He walks over and it just says, "Sleep well?" Question mark. Sam is confident whoever was stalking him at his campsite is the same person or group of people that wrote this message in his car. And now Sam just wonders what would happen if I retrieved that flashlight. In 1982, a very outdoorsy teenage girl and boy who recently started dating decided to go camping. Around 1 a.m. on the first night they were there, the girl wakes up and she has to go to the bathroom. She's about to unzip her tent when she stops because she hears some strange noises coming from outside her tent. It wasn't that loud, but it sounded distinctly like something was digging into the ground. But she really had to go. She figured, you know what, it's probably some small animal or something. And so she begins to unzip the tent. There's a little bit of moonlight that night. There's a clearing outside the tent, so the moonlight's pouring through, so she has plenty of illumination. And so she looks through this tiny hole and she can't believe what she sees. It is a grown woman squatting down about 2 or 3 feet away from their tent. Her back is too bent so she can't see that she's looking at the tent, and she's feverishly digging into the ground in front of her. The girl literally falls backwards into her tent. She's so startled by what she sees, and she lands on her boyfriend who immediately gets up and says, "What's going on?" And she goes, and she points at the little hole where she had unzipped the tent, and she goes, the boy is confused, but he can tell his girlfriend is very serious, so he sits up quietly and he looks through the little opening in the door, and he sees that the boy recoils and looks at his girlfriend and he's like, "What's going on down there?" He takes a flashlight and she tells him, "Don't do it," and he opens up the tent a little bit more and he aims his flashlight directly on this woman. This gets her attention. He stops digging and she stands up slowly and she turns around and faces him. And she's got no expression. She's not giving him any indication why she's there. She's not acting aggressive. She's not acting scared. She's just and she stands there staring at them for quite a while before turning around and just walking away from the camera. And after a little while, when the friends start seeing on it, they open their tent away, they go outside, they kind of scan around with the flashlights, and what we found, and they go to where she was digging, and it's just this weird orange hole in the ground. Find no reason to watch it. And so after sitting there wondering what they should do, they settled on, well, tomorrow we'll tell the park rangers that she's here and we able to do that. And so feeling pretty confident that this woman's not going to come back, they both go back into the tent, zip it shut, and in their sleeping bags, and go to sleep. And they hear some money from the inside. They know it's this woman. They immediately unzip the tent and they look out, and now the woman's not digging anymore. She's rummaging through some of their stuff that's outside of the tent. And the way she's doing it, they describe as monkey-like. She picks something up, look at it, and throw it over her head. Pick the next thing up, throw it over her head. Back and forth, just throwing things behind her. And so the boy gets out, he shines a light on her and goes, "You need to leave." And she doesn't react. She just keeps flipping through all their stuff until he gets pretty forceful and says, "You need to leave right now." And at that point she kind of stops and looks at him like, "Huh?" And then she gets up, turns around, and walks away. Now the couple really doesn't know what to do because she's clearly willing to come back after being confronted. But they stayed outside their tent for about 15 more minutes, shining their light, making lots of noise, and treating her like she's an animal that's trying to scare her away from the campsite. And after a little bit of time, they thought, okay, there's no way she was expecting help. They were pretty aggressive with her this time, and she seemed to really get it. They both go back to the tent. As soon as they zip it shut, they hear her come running straight back to the site, like she was literally waiting in the wings for when they went back in the tent. And this time she runs back to the hole in her car, and she's just feverishly digging into the ground as fast as she can. And this time they come out of their tent and they're mad, and they're screaming at this woman, "Get the F out of here, will you? Go away." And this seems to kind of frighten her. She gets up and she looks at them like, "Why are you yelling at me?" And she runs away. It looked almost animalistic the way she was running away, like she was feral. The boy and the girl supposedly
by about 3:30 in the morning, they've been outside for 2 hours, they're getting cold, they're tired, the woman's nowhere to be found, and so they finally say, let's go back into business. I think this time. They get back into their sleeping bags, and they go to sleep near her. The next morning, when they get up, and it's at their tent, they look outside, and all of their stuff has been thrown all over the campsite. And the hole in the ground, where the dog that was previously about 4 or 6 inches deep, is now well over a foot deep. You realize this woman must have been working in the shadows in the woods, watching them from 1:30 to 3:30 in the morning. This whole time they were out there just boarding her off. She was just waiting, just watching them the whole time in the shadows. And as soon as they went into their tent, she must have given it a little bit of time, and she ran right back over. She ransacked their site. It was after they looked at all the stuff that was tucked around. Nothing was missing. There was some pretty expensive stuff that was laying out that she would have taken. After they picked up their site, they went to the park ranger and told him about what happened. The ranger has no idea what this is. He's never heard of such a thing. And so the couple just leaves that day because it's not about spending nothing. And to this day, they have no idea why this woman was running under their site and digging into the ground and looking through their stuff. It's like she was just a wild animal.
Whether you're looking to get away or mix it up with the crowd, Call of Duty Mobile has you covered.
In the early 2000s, a teenager named Evan and his father would regularly go hunting in the Georgia backcountry. When Evan turned 14, his father befriended a very wealthy landowner in Georgia who offered him access to one of the best private hunting areas. And just a couple of days later, on October 5th, Evan and his father would take off on a hunt. They woke up super early and they drove out to the edge of this property that was actually fenced in. They went to a main gate where they had the combo that this guy had given them. They punched in the combo, opened up the gate, the man shut the gate, locked it, and then continued down the access. They followed this road for about 2 miles where he was stopped right outside of this huge forest. They parked their truck, they got out, they put on their gear, and pretty bodyguards began hiking into the woods. Even though they were there primarily to hunt, Evan and his father secretly enjoyed just hiking around the woods and camping out, and any chance they got to extend their hunting trips, they would, even if the hunting wasn't good. And so since they spent a ton of time in the woods together, they noticed almost immediately when they walked into this particular forest, something was off. Birds and animals, silence, totally silent. The only sounds they heard that were not them was a single plane that passed overhead. Although they found this very odd, they figured, you know what, this is private property, not a lot of people are out here. I'm sure as soon as we showed up, the animals were aware of us, and it's good. They finally make it out to the hunting stand that the owner had told them about. They get all settled in, they're getting ready to see some animals. All day long, they don't see a single animal. They don't hear a single animal. In fact, again, it's just completely silent. Frustrated, they began packing up their stuff, making their way down off the stand, and they started looking for a place to make camp for the night. And Evan's father suggested, well, hey, there's obviously nothing over here. It's going to be quiet all day. Why don't we walk deeper into the woods a little bit, set up camp there, so tomorrow we'll have a better chance of seeing some animals. So they hiked about an hour farther away from where they parked their truck, and they reached this clearing, perfect for setting up their camp. So they set up their tent, and Evan's father said, hey, we saw some daylight, let's go fire a rock and see if we can see some animals out here now. And Evan's like, yeah, why not? So they hike a ways away from the campsite, they set up their line, and once again, they don't see any animals, it's totally quiet. So they turn around and decide to do that. As soon as they could see their campsite, which really was just their tent, they noticed that their tent was now collapsed. And Evan's father turns to him and says, oh, it must have been the wind. Evan says, no, it couldn't have been. Because all day today we've been commenting on how quiet it is and how the fact that there's no weather, no wind, no anything is heightening the fact that it's completely silent. So it could not have been. So Evan's father is like, well, when you set the tent up, did you not put the posts into the eyelets? Did you not pull it correctly? And Evan's like, no, I made that tent 1,000 times. No one set it correctly. They walk into their campsite and they look down at their tent and they're really confused with what they see. The 2 rods that go in an X over the top of the tent thread through nylon loops that anchor at 4 different points at the base of the tent. Well, they have been removed from 4 points. If you know how a tent works, it works on tension. And once you have a rod anchored into
points, it doesn't just pop out. It's anchored at two sides. It's actually difficult to remove each anchor. Once one is out, the other comes out easily. But basically, the rod would need to break in order for it to come out of those anchor points, or someone would have to come over and remove it, and they didn't remove them, and none of the rods were broken. Which leaves them with either they failed to set up their tent, even though they had distinct and clear memories of setting it up and double checking it was set up, they put gear inside of it, or someone came over to their campsite while they were gone and undid the fourth one. They decide, you know what, it can't be some stranger coming over here, because we're the only ones who create Congo. This is private property and no one could have been here. And why would they do that if they came to our campsite? Why would they raise the last tent and vanish? So it had to be us. We must have not made the tent. And while they didn't really believe that they had not made that tent, they convinced themselves that that's what happened. Because the alternative was just too bizarre and frankly terrifying to consider. So they build their tent, they build a fire, they stay up for a little while chatting, before being tired and saying, "Okay, let's go to bed," they extinguish the fire again. A couple hours later, Evan wakes up suddenly. He's not sure if he's dreaming or not, but he thinks he hears someone laughing a couple hundred meters behind his tent off in the woods. Evan instinctively turns to make sure his dad is still in the tent with him. He is. And Evan starts listening really intently to what's happening outside. And all he can hear is silence, like it's been since they got to the woods. And evil laughter, and so he says, "Okay, I must be dreaming," and it wasn't any laughter out there. And eventually Evan goes back to sleep. A while later, Evan wakes up suddenly again, except this time his dad is already waiting for him to be right there. Evan sits up and speaks to his dad. Evan listens. His word is laughing. It wasn't dreaming. Evan also realizes the laughter is not coming from the same area he heard it. It's now coming from the opposite direction, and it's a lot closer. Evan very quietly and carefully explains to his dad that he actually heard this laughter coming from his room, and his father heard it. After this revelation, they turn their attention backwards to listen, because they're hoping this is just going to stop. Whatever this is, it's just going to stop. It doesn't. They hear footsteps running towards them, way off in the forest. It's so quiet, it's really easy to hear these footsteps. Whatever this is charging towards them. It comes to a complete stop right at the edge. At this point, Evan is now grabbing onto his father. Evan's father is holding up his rifle and he's getting ready to open the tent to confront whatever's out there. And right before he grabs the zipper, this thing, this person, whatever it is, starts laughing again. And it's practically right on top of it. It's so loud. They can hear it clear as day, right there, right outside their tent. And Evan's father takes a deep breath, grabs the zipper. As soon as he begins moving it, the sound the zipper made causes the laughter to stop. They don't hear footsteps. They know probably something's still out there. The laughter stops like it's recognized that they're making noise. They're right there. There they are. They're in the tent. Evan's father freezes with his hand on the zipper. And he's debating whether he should go outside or not. And before he can even make that decision, whatever this thing is, turns around and points back to the woods. And for several minutes, they just sit like that in total silence, praying that whatever this is going through. And after several